All right, man, let's get into this conversation. I know why you're here. This is unfiltered. I know why you're here. You know I do cowboy stuff in the A block like everybody else. You want me to talk about Jerry. I'll oblige. But I gotta listen, Jerry threatening to fire folks around here. While Sean and RJ might not work for Jerry, there are some components of my life that actually work for Jerry. But you know how I'm going to keep it real 100%. Jerry Jones has not only doubled down, but he has tripled down on his statement. If you don't know who Jerry Jones is, he is the owner, president, and general manager of the Dallas Cowboys. And Jerry Jones here locally in the DFW area does a radio show every Tuesday and Friday, I believe. But this past Tuesday, Jerry did a radio show at 105.3 The Fan, a place that I'm very familiar with. I worked there for 7, 8 years. I was fired, not by Jerry, unceremoniously. But I know the people there, good people over there. Sean and RJ was a show that Jerry Jones was on Tuesday morning. This is coming off the heels of the Cowboys getting boat raced, toyed with, embarrassed on Jerry's 82nd birthday at home in AT&T Stadium, 47-9. So, of course, Jerry would be a little bit upset. But we would all say, especially someone who's worked in the media for as long as I have, the one thing that we've always been to say about Jerry Jones was he had thick skin and the ability for him to take criticism. Well, not Tuesday. Jerry initially jumped on with Sean and RJ, and they began to have a discussion, and Jerry went left. To paraphrase, Jerry threatened to either move shows or for people to lose their jobs. Jerry called them names like yahoos. Jerry told them that you're not qualified to ask these questions. Jerry told them basically, you work for me and I'll take questions from the fans, but your line of questioning I will not accept. And it threw Sean and RJ for a loop. It threw many of us for a loop. Like, whoa, like, man, like Jerry just didn't make this about football. He made this very personal. And like many of us, we thought, all right, he's a little upset. I get it. We understand it. He'll cool down. Cooler heads will prevail. His PR team will get with him. He'll come back with a statement. At that time of his interview on Tuesday morning, he was en route to his private plane to go to Atlanta for some NFL owners meetings where they, I want to say unanimously, but they agreed for Tom Brady they approved Tom Brady to having 5% stake in the Vegas Raiders. And we'll talk a little bit more about that because that's some interesting things that now that Tom Brady, who works for Fox and also has a minority stake in the Vegas Raiders ownership, there's some things that old TB12 can't do now that he's an owner. But nonetheless, Jerry goes to these meetings and you thought that he would have time to reflect, time to think about the things that he did. And when he gets to Atlanta, Diana Rossini was there and she asked him questions and Jerry doubled down. He doubled down on his statement and he made it very clear what he meant. He made it very clear that there was no turning back. He made it very clear that he had the power to basically do what he wanted, when he wanted, to who he wanted, in any way he wanted to. Speaking mainly about Sean, RJ, and Bobby Belt. And even going to the owners' meeting, you would think PR team, someone reached out and someone had an opportunity to say something to Jerry. After the owner meeting was over, and this new article that came out earlier today, Jared Bell from USA Today, he got a chance to talk to Jerry after the owners' meetings, waiting outside for his transportation to take him back to the airport to get back on his PJ to come back to wherever, I guess to Dallas. Old Jared tripled down on it. And he just basically said, Jared asked him, just asked him, were you for real about the things that you said to the host at 105.3 The Fan? And Jerry basically said, I don't know, standing outside waiting for his SUV. He says, I'll tell you what. And he speaks of a time when Dale Hansen and Brad Sham, if you are anywhere in the locally, you know who those guys are. Brad Sham being the longtime voice of the Cowboys, and Dale Hansen being a long time, news anchor, sports news anchor here in the DFW area. He said had to take a leave when they went too far one way or another. They used to have a radio show back in the day in the early 90s. And then Jerry continued on with his comments. And Jerry asked him, Jerry's made this comment many times before about, I am the person that has the last say so. From socks to jocks. He had an article that came out this year on DLLS Cowboys in All City from Clarence Hill. And he told people there's not an MFer who can do it the way that I do it. When it comes to contracts, when it comes to business, when it comes to doing things football-wise. But then Jerry talked about, he says, that the buck stopped with the team owner in more ways than one. Jerry then alluded to, he says, but they're my own folks, Jerry said of the host, Sean and RJ and Bobby Belt. That's like Brad and Dale putting it on us during ball games. When Brad Sham and Dale Hansen did this years ago, Jerry kind of flexed his power and they had to take a leave of absence. But as you get more into this article, you see, and it's up, it's at USA Sports from Jared Bell. And Jerry said, I don't want to demean or undermine their credibility. Now, you've already done that. But this is where you always kind of say this. Whenever there's a but, that first part sometimes may not mean as much. He said, we were kind of set up for taking me to the woodshed. And I wasn't ready for that. I was going to talk about the very thing that they wanted to talk about, but I didn't want it before a tribunal. They're not the ones, Jones added of the host. Now the guys that are listening, meaning the fans that are listening on the station, the ticket holders and the fans, they are the ones. Jerry went on to talk about how Sean and RJ, they aren't credible enough to question him. They don't have the football. He even talked about if those guys had the answers, and Jerry talked about, don't talk about the bad things I've done without talking about the good things that I've done. And they were basically just asking Jerry, hey, Jerry, the way that this season is going, could it be indicative of the lack of off-season, and I'm doing my air quotes, all in that you said that didn't take place? And this is the part where Jerry began to threaten their jobs. He said, I'll get someone else. He said during the segment, I'm not kidding. Jerry went on to say, they set the tone. I have fans all the time that I communicate with. They have more of a right, really, than guys that I frankly pay to put on a show. Yes, you and I both know I might get criticized when I say that. And then Jerry Bell asked him, criticized for what? Trying to squash freedom of speech? That's never been us. He said, free as a breeze here. And the article goes on and on, and you can read it. What's going on, man? It's your boy, Jay Holley. That's right. Former Dallas Cowboy receiver, winner of 4th and Long with Michael Irvin, and host of Unfiltered with Jesse Holley. If you're watching this video, guess what? You can be a part of this show too. You can have your ad here or here or here or here. Anywhere you decide that you want us to put it. We can have a ticker tape. We can have it on a shirt. I can put it on a hat. I just want you and us, we, me, you, together. Let's find a way to get your brand and my brand on the platform. We stream everywhere. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all over the place. I need you. You need me. Let's work together. Like teamwork. Everyone achieves more when we work together, baby. You need to be a part of this. I'm telling you, get on the ground floor, because yesterday's price might not be today's price. But here's my thing when it comes to Jerry. You're right. You're absolutely right. Everything. You are the alpha and the omega when it comes to anything related to Cowboys. You are the beginning and you are the end. 100%. You made that very clear. You have let us all know for many, many years. But what is also true is that when people like Sean and RJ, myself and others that work in the media, they are qualified enough to ask you the questions. We are the vessels, the conduits from the fan base to the people in charge. What is also true, Jerry, is you volunteered for this. Because you could just be owner, president, and general manager and be out the way. Jerry, you are the only owner in all of sports who are on the radio twice a week. You are the only owner in all of sports who sets up and has a post-game press conference. You may hear a word or two every once in a blue from an owner or general manager or president of a team. But every game, you voluntarily make yourself available for conversation. You don't have to do that. Furthermore, you are responsible. Everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, lay at your feet. Because you are the owner, the president, and the general manager. And if we are talking about what Sean and RJ and Bobby was, this season and how this season is going, you are responsible for this. This 3-3 roster, this team that has gotten blown out at home, this team that couldn't stop a nosebleed, this team who was in disarray, this team who has a bunch of coaches on one-year deals and who has 33 players on this roster on one-year deals, it's your fault. You are the alpha and the omega of this. The buck does stop with you. So you have to take this criticism. And I get it. What happened on Sunday against the Detroit Lions was embarrassing on any front. It's even more embarrassing when they do it in your living room, your home stadium, in front of your fans. It's even more embarrassing when it's on your birthday. But what you can't do, and to your credit, Jerry, you haven't, this is a rare case where you get lemon booty and you get personal. But this falls at your feet. And the lack of accountability that you have shown over the last couple days in this instance says a lot about why your team is the way that your team is. Because your team lacks accountability. Your coaches lack accountability. The old saying in Remember the Titans, attitude reflects leadership. And you put on full display the type of leadership that we're seeing amongst your football team. When things don't go right, I flex my power because I rule with a mighty fist. When all we do is give the Cowboys a tremendous amount of coverage. All those guys were doing were asking you questions that they get peppered with via Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and when fans run into them and when fans call in and when fans are listening and doing the pre and post-game show for your team. They're not telling you how to run your team. They're simply asking questions on what is happening with the team you're responsible for. Now, could you make people lose their jobs? I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could. You have enough power, enough influence, and enough cheddar to make things go left for people. I don't think that's who you are. I hope that's not who you are. I hope this was a moment of frustration. I hope this was a moment of just having a bad day. But make no mistake about this, Jerry. All of this is because this is what you wanted. You wanted to be the face of this franchise. You want to be the most recognizable owner. You want people to know at every single turn just who you are and what you mean for this team. Now, maybe this stems from the time where when you first took over this team and you were trying to stop the bleeding from happening. You were losing $1 million a month. And you turned over a lot of control to Jimmy Johnson. And Jimmy came in and he took your 1-15 and your 3-13 teams and he turned them into Super Bowl champions. And maybe you didn't feel like you were getting enough credit then. And so from that point forward, you had to let and wanted to let everyone know, I am the guy. We all get it. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If we will praise you and we will give you salutes and we'll give you congratulations and adoration and all of the cheers when you get things right, and we do, then you can't get upset and all of a sudden now want to rule from a place of dictatorship and out of fear and wield your powerful sword around when people ask you questions when things don't go so well. I think this time around, the Teflon Don of Jerry Jones, the shield, the thick skin that you've always worn, there may be a little dent in the armor. You can always apologize. You can always look back at this, even at 82 years old, as a learning lesson for me, for you, for all of us. That if you're going to stand up there and have your chest pumped out when things go right for your team and for your franchise and for your business and for you personally, you got to stand there when things don't. That's accountability. You have to own it, both literally and figuratively, because you let us know all the time. The buck starts and stops with Jerry. It's unfortunate at this time is that the buck that you kicked was of a petulant child, and you got to be better. You got to be better. A lot of people watching. You took a hit. You can rebound from it, but a hit nonetheless.